Grassy boxgum woodlands once covered 5 million hectares of the slopes and plains that run from Queensland through to northern Victoria. But now less than 10% remain, and only 1% are in high-quality condition.
When the first explorers came through, they saw this tall kangaroo grass right up to their saddles. They saw yam daisies, which their sheep ate really fast, and all the lilies. And they saw the great potential of this for what made Australia's agricultural history. These are the areas where our crops, our canola, our wheat and our sheep farms are across southeastern Australia.
The rapid development of agriculture from the 1800s onwards saw most of the grassy woodland ecosystem disappear.
So now the best patches in these very small remnants, especially in cemeteries and country towns, along railway lines, where the fences went up really early and that stopped grazing animals getting in there. That's protected all these species that had disappeared from everywhere else in the landscape.
So how can the understory be returned to native grassland? Maybe the old cemetery sites hold the clue.
In the cemeteries there were hardly any weeds, so we asked the question, well, if these sites have got lots of weed seeds coming in and blowing into them, why aren't they establishing and becoming weedy just like all of the sites around?
This looks like a really diverse patch here. So all across here we have chocolate lilies. They'll come up in fields of yellow later in the season. This is a goodenia. It has a yellow flower. This is a common everlasting with the silver foliage here. Oh, look, here's a little greenhood orchid, which is really rare in the region.
What are these here?
This is a sundew, so it's a carnivorous plant. One over here we've got a yam daisy, which is one of the rarest of the plants in this region now that persists only in these small cemeteries.
They sampled the soil in the cemeteries and compared it to the soil in the weedy sites. The results were astonishing.
What we found was that the cemeteries had very low soil nutrient levels, and in particular very low soil nitrate. The levels were down below 2 milligrams per kilo, whereas in the weedy sites you might be finding up to 30 milligrams per kilogram.
Could the solution be to starve the weeds of nutrients?
First, we wanted to actually test whether our idea that soil nitrate or soil nutrients were actually driving the weeds.
A series of test plots was established, along with a control area full of weeds.
We did an experiment where we tried to reduce the amount of available nitrate in the system, and an extraordinarily easy way to do that on small plots is to add sugar, just white sugar. So we went to the local shop and bought up all that bags of white sugar and threw them over the ground. So when we put this carbohydrate on, the soil microbes gobble that up really quickly, and when they do, they gobble up a lot of that nitrate. And it's a race to get that nitrate. They get it faster than the weeds do, so then the weeds get starved of nutrients.
So what impact does that have on the battle between the weeds and the native vegetation?
So this is the control plot here. So at this plot we haven't applied any treatments.
Very lushly filled with weeds.
Indeed. The first thing that you notice is how thickly filled with weeds it is and how few spaces there are for the little native species.
And what about the sugared plots?
We've added sugar every 3 months to this plot. We've really changed the structure of this grassland. We've now got lots of nice open spaces that the native plants can grow in. And even though we haven't added the native wildflower seed to these sites, we are starting to see that we're getting some of the native wildflowers growing back into these little spaces between the grass tussocks.
Sugar provides a short-term hit, but it isn't seen by the researchers as a solution.
In our plots, we used sugar to find out that nutrients were really important. But then when we got the native grasses in, we realised that actually they could do that role for us. So kangaroo grass in that system is a really keystone species.
Kangaroo grass takes up the nitrates, so they aren't available for the weeds. The weeds stay small, while the native understory plants get the competitive edge.
The next bit that's really important is to be able to upscale this to a scale that becomes practical for landholders and managers to use over large areas. And the key component there is really working out really reliable ways to get native grasses established.